This is an overview of a book, as you can see from the cover of this book. This is essentially the book that's called "The Pursuit of Human Well-Being: The Untold Global History." I am Joseph Sergi, and the book is edited with Richard Estes. And what we're going to do in this video is provide you with an overview of the book. So, what is the book about? The handbook informs the reader about how much progress we, the human race, have made in enhancing the quality of life on this planet. Many skeptics focus on how the quality of life has deteriorated over the course of human history, particularly given the Second World War and its aftermath. This handbook provides a positive perspective on the history of well-being. Quality of life, as documented by scientists worldwide, has significantly improved. Nevertheless, one sees more improvements in well-being in some regions of the world than in others. Why? This handbook documents the progress of well-being in various world regions, as well as differences in those regions. So the broad questions that the handbook addresses include: what does well-being mean? How do different philosophical and religious traditions interpret the concept of well-being within their own context? Has well-being remained the same over different historical epochs and for different regions and subregions of the world? In which area of human development have we been most successful in advancing individual and collective well-being? In which sectors has the attainment of well-being proven most difficult? How does well-being differ within and between different population groups that, for a variety of socially created reasons, have been the most disadvantaged? For example, children, the aged, women, the poor, racial and ethnic and sexual minorities. So the book is divided in 5 parts. The first part is essentially, it covers the historical conceptions of well-being over the long term. The second part focuses on what we call domains of well-being. The third part of the book, it involves regional analyses of the history and contemporary state of well-being since the Second World War. And then the fourth part, we focus on special issues related to the well-being of nations. And then the last part is essentially an epilogue, in which Richard Estes and I, summarize much of the content of the book, and we put our thoughts together and give the reader a sense of closure. So to give you a better idea of what the first part is, and I'm going to just give you an exposure of the chapters and the authors that have written those chapters. The first part, again, the historical conceptions of well-being over the long term. And as you can see, this part of the book involves 5 chapters. The first chapter is the search for well-being from ancient to modern times. And again, my co-editor is the author. My co-editor Richard Estes is the author of this chapter. The second chapter is Western Historical Traditions of Well-Being, and this chapter is written by Alex Mikolos and Daniel Wiegers. The third chapter is East Asian Historical Traditions of Well-Being, and this chapter is authored by Sean Author and Victor Mayer. The fourth chapter is Well-Being in India, a Historical and Anthropological Report, again authored by Isabel Clark Desis and Frederick Smith. The fifth chapter is Islamic Conceptions of Well-Being, and again authored by Mohsin Joshanlu. So that gives you a sense of what the first part of the book is all about. The second part, again, what we do is we focus on domains of well-being, and this part only involves one chapter, and that is how we measure well-being, the data behind the history of well-being. And this particular chapter is authored by me, Joseph Sergi, again, Richard Estes, my co-editor, and Audrey Sellian. The third part of the book is probably the most voluminous, and this one is called Regional Analyses of the History and Contemporary State of Well-Being Since the Second World War. And it starts from chapter 7, New Beginnings in an Ancient Region, Well-Being in Sub-Saharan Africa, authored by Valerie Moeller and Benjamin Roberts. Chapter 8, Well-Being in Latin America, and again, this chapter is authored by Mariano Rojas and Jose Diaz Garcia Vega. Chapter 9 is Well-Being in Canada and the United States, and here we have multiple authors. Again, my co-editor Richard Estes, and we have Kenneth Land, Alex Mikolos, Rhonda Phillips, and myself, Joseph Sergi. Chapter 10, The History of Well-Being in East Asia, From Global Conflict to Global Leadership. And this chapter is co-authored by Takashi Inaguchi and Richard Estes. Chapter 11, The History of Well-Being in South Asia, co-authored by Vijay Kumar Shrotriya and Krishna Muzumdar. Again, we have a lot more chapters in this part, and again, chapters 12, we have the history of well-being in Southeast Asia, and this chapter is co-authored by Mahar Mangas and Edilberto Jesus, excuse my pronunciation. Chapter 13, The History of Well-Being in Europe, co-authored by Wolfgang Glatzer and Jürgen Kohl. Chapter 14, The History of Well-Being in Oceania, co-authored by Robert Cummings and Tanya Kapczyk. Chapter 15, Well-Being in the Transition Economies of the Successor States of the Former Soviet Union, co-authored by Carol Graham and Orite Werman. Chapter 16, The History of Well-Being in the Middle East and North Africa, co-authored by Habib Talaween and Mohammad Mizain. We still got another chapter in that third part of the book, and that would be chapter 17, and this chapter is about the Arctic people. So it's the well-being of the circumpolar Arctic people, the quest for continuity, and authored by Birger Poppel. Okay, now what we're doing, then we move to this fourth part of the book that deals with special issues related to well-being of nations and population groups. And in this context, we have two chapters. One chapter that is authored by Elizabeth Eckerman, and it is about the history of well-being and global progress of women. So it focuses on women here. And chapter 19, it focuses on the role of technology in the history of well-being. And this chapter is co-authored by Audrey Sellian and Lee McKnight. And the last part of the book is essentially an epilogue, and it is written by the editors. That's Richard Estes and myself, Joseph Sergi.